Once you take the pill, the magic pill, and you go in that room, that's what Dariuss is. And are you ready? Some, I don't think they are, and some they are. It's a film, like I say, it's a visionary film made for the future, for tomorrow's audience.
Welcome back to the Dead Harvey podcast. This is Brad Paulson. Today, I'm very happy to have back with me Guerrilla Metropolitana. Hey, wait a minute. Correct me so that I can pronounce your last name wrong, because I always spell it wrong. I always spell it Metropolitania. Is it Metro? But I know it's I always say it like Metropolitania, but it sounds like it's spelled like it's Metropolitana. How do you pronounce your last name?
Yeah, the second one, Metropolitana.
Okay. Well, it's awesome to have you back. You did an insane movie. A very artistic and very insane movie. Now, this is cool because I was looking at when we recorded last time, and this was about a year ago in June 2022. Yeah. We put up the interview for your other movies that are on YouTube, kind of like your collection of short movies. Yeah. And you told me, you said, I'm working on this new one called Dariuss, and in about a year, I'm going to put it out. And I just want to mention that is not a lot of people do that. Not a lot of people say they're going to make a movie in a year and they give it a time frame and actually finish that in that time frame. So that I want to commend you on, because that as a filmmaker, being able to actually do what you say you're going to do on a time frame you're going to do is actually very rare. Thank
you.
Yeah, absolutely. So you definitely deserve props for that. And you also did not undersell the movie. You told me about how crazy it was going to be, and I think it was even crazier than you described it. Sometimes people will describe a movie as being, this movie is completely insane, bonkers for these reasons, and I'll be like, I don't know, I've seen a lot crazier than that. But yeah, you didn't undersell this one. So this movie, I think it'd probably be best for you to describe it.
I think this film, if I can call it film, it's more like a cinematographic journey of madness, human demons, I guess, perversion, a lot of it, human pain, a number of things put together, but the core of it remains pretty much what we are essentially as human beings, what we're capable of. The film shows you a different range of characters, none of them particularly likable. Nevertheless, each one of them has, to some degree, some kind of childlike behavior, some more than others. So in a way, this film reflects the most primordial instincts that we have, given the right circumstances, whether it is loss or anything else. And there's no heroes or good guys winning here. And even the victims, they're not that better than the perpetrator. So it's a very ambiguous film. It's a film that can be watched backwards, literally. It can be watched backwards, and you can still make some sense out of it.
That was cool. I'm sorry to interrupt you. No, that was cool when you mentioned that, because so when you're describing it, watching it backwards, do you mean just like one scene at a time watching it backwards, or do you mean watching it just like kind of reversing it?
Both. The way I conceived this film, Brad, was this film, I would like to point out, cost me 3 mental breakdowns.
Yeah.
Because the intensity of it. I wanted to make a mirror kind of a fact story where all of my personal demons, all of my madness, fear, perversions, and anger could be shown on camera, but in a cinematographic fashion. And, you can watch it backwards and still you can see the beginning of the film that can be the end, and backward, and so on. I mean, this film, it's not about some person killing other people and that's it. This film is about, why this is happening. And, but even though it doesn't matter who. The fact is, whoever is watching the film doesn't really feel he's watching something, but it feels more like he's part of something, because the way the film is being shot, partially meta cinema, gives perhaps a more sense of realism, especially during the the second part when it gets really ugly. Um, you are witnessing what's happening. Really, you find it very hard to just walk away, look away, because I wanted to replace traditional dialogues with visuals and sounds, and it's pretty much as if you are, I don't know, I'm going to give you a very maybe stupid example. If you are breaking into somebody else's property and you want to steal something, but then the owner comes back home earlier, and then you're witnessing something and you're hiding behind the closet, you can't do nothing. Obviously, you can't say nothing, and yet you're witnessing what later turned out to be a complete massacre. And that's pretty much the feeling of the viewer. Those few who have watched this film, they felt very uncomfortable, and yet they could not look away for some reason, as if they were possessed to some degree. They didn't like what they saw, and yet they could not resist but watch the whole thing throughout the end. And the film does continue even after the final credits, to the point that the film stops even showing images and works solely through sounds, noises. The film does not even need at that point anymore to communicate through visuals, as powerful as it is. And that's because of the lack of dialogues. It's very primordial. Everything, gory wise, sexually wise, fear wise, or anything else related to the human instinct, it's right there and does not require words. It's a very sick and unique film, and it's not for everybody. I always say this to everybody. This film will not be ideal for the popcorn horror fan.
Yeah,
This
yeah,
will be ideal for those who are looking into darker places, a lot darker, places where you can just shut off, places that you know where you're going, but you don't know where the end of the journey will be. Whilst popcorn horror stuff, you know the entrance and you know the exit. Dariuss, it's a lost cosmo. There are images that sticks to your brain for a long time. That's how powerful the film is. And to work all these details out from the moment of conceivement to the moment of shooting the material with different members of the cast, to the long and complex stage, editing, photography, all the technical stuff, which I had in mind, and I needed a technician named Fabrizio Lamonica, which in this film goes under the alias of Archibald Kane, which is also an actor. He's also a director himself, but and he did the executive part of the editing and photography. But it was me telling him, look, this is what I would like you to do, and to transfer my vision from my brain into his hands, since he knows all the softwares and things that was not an easy task. It took us 8 to 9 months roughly to do that. And this film, which is a very low budget film, from a technical standpoint, is being made more like an album rather than a live film, since there's no dialogue. Every single sound, noise, anything sound related has been recorded, later on added through multi-tracks digitally, some stuff even through my own mouth, recorded with my own mouth and then distorted through editing. It's a very experimental film, but at the same time it does not have that kind of intellectual kind of flair, which I hate. I didn't want to make an intellectual film. I wanted to make a raw,
yeah.
hyper realistic film, that can really shake the audience, not for the sake of it, but to transport the audience in a complete state of just madness, complete madness. Because at the end of the day, you can't really work out who's more mad in the film.
Yeah.
Everyone is.
Well, I felt like I was experiencing madness when I watched it. Like I was telling you, like after I was messaging you after I watched it, and I was like, well, it kind of scrambled my brain because when you watch a movie, and I agree with you, it's not, it doesn't have a pretentious feel at all, but it does have a very raw feel, very like kind of raw, brutal, and experimental feel to it. And I think that the reason why it kind of scrambled my brain is because your brain's still trying to process it because, well, when a lot of people are watching, we have so many different movies that we watch with conventions and structures that we're used to. This is so different in the fact that there's no dialogue and you're recreating these sounds, and these sounds are kind of eerie because they almost like you're saying with these multiple tracks, kind of almost like they have an echo to it. Like it's finding a way to bury it into a different part of your brain, but it's kind of etching into your brain. And you're watching the people go mad. And since there's no dialogue and there's just kind of like these weird sounds that are in the background, it almost made me feel like I was looking at a series of paintings, like paintings or moving images, and then they just kept getting kind of more harrowing. The second part of the movie, especially, is really I think what's gonna test people to get through it.
Yeah.
But it is a really really interesting movie, and the way that like you chose the contrast, all the multiple edits on it. It's a pretty fascinating movie to watch. Like I think that just for I mean just making a movie on this kind of style. And what was your now I know that we talked before about like kind of what your influences were and everything, but what is it that draws you to this kind of style as opposed to any other kind of style in telling your story?
Um, I think a number of things. I mean, black and white German expressionism is present in the film, especially when one of the actresses playing the lead role, the
Mhm.
wife, she's having um, mental breakdowns, and she's got psychosis. She's taking pills. She's hallucinating, and moments like that. I wanted to have a darker kind of tone, and the moments where she's pleasing herself, for example, sexuality, it's very dominant in this film. um More like a pink or pink-ish kind of photography, more like the old school French erotic kind of stuff. And then when it goes down to heavy levels, very raw, I wanted a more kind of grainy looking 70s dirty uh, tone, almost like, yeah, some horror, but more I will say like some very badly made 70s horror or porn films, badly edited. But with me, it was an artistic choice. It wasn't because I could not do any better, but because I was looking for that kind of visuals. There's a lot of bodily fluids in the film. There's a lot of sexuality in this film, masturbation, female masturbation, male masturbation. The film, it goes borderline with pornography. And that's why to find a suitable distributor for a DVD release, it's possible, because that's what I'm aiming for. But it's not going to be something that will happen overnight, because the film is actually is stronger than most horror films and far more hardcore than a lot of strong porn films. And yet it's not a porno film, and it's not a classic horror film, because, as you say, there's also an experimental tone. So that makes the film very difficult to encapsulate in one category, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost like it's its own kind of subgenre. So it would be difficult to it's like this or it's like this or
Yeah,
for yeah, it is going to be like a little bit of a challenge for that. But on the other hand, the bonus of that is you're almost kind of adding to creating a new subgenre. And I think
yeah,
that with like this age of experimentalism, the more that'll kind of catch on. But I think that what was interesting about it is that it it stayed in my mind more than a lot of other like really violent movies that I've seen, because I think because with those movies I know that there's a certain element of fantasy, so that my mind no, not decapitate itself, but detach itself from it. In this one, it kind of blurs the line more, like you're talking about voyeurism. But I think with just the images and then taking the unconventional style of not just the POV like we see in a lot of movies, like a lot of Michael Myers movies, things like that, or Friday the 13th, not just taking that POV, but extending it to go and spending time with all the people involved, and then just starting to become spending time with them and seeing what their level of madness is like, and then experiencing their madness, and then going on to the next person, then the POVs. I think it's a really interesting approach and a way to do a movie, and it was effective in a lot of ways because it did stay in my mind a lot more than many other movies. Now, there's some very like violent scenes in this, but I think it's like in terms of, well, graphically, but I think in terms of, it's not a movie where like 300 people get killed, or it's not a movie where there's a huge like massacre or anything like that. It's there's some very intense moments in it. So on a level of like violence, people are exposed to a lot more, but these ones are just more intense in these scenes. So so it hit me in a lot of different ways. There are some of the violent scenes that happen that will not leave your mind for a while.
The skeleton of the story is fundamentally what I had in mind from day one, which is home invasion. So we're talking about here at the end of the day about a home invasion movie. That's what it is in terms of skeleton. What makes it completely different from all other home invasion movies is what's going on in that house. That is what makes everything else different. But the outside box is fundamentally a home invasion movie, very claustrophobic. Everything is happening right there. There's no way out, not because someone locks the door or anything like that, but because that house, it's almost like a cosmo. There's nothing normal in that house, nothing normal, from the paintings to the people who live there, the things they do as a result of the pain from the loss of this little girl. At that point, I had a person who actually started doubting even about the little girl, whether or not she was a positive character, whether or not it was her provoking to some degree certain reactions from someone. Can you imagine how people can read in multiple different ways? It's unbelievable. I had people even doubting the existence of a certain character which we see in the film throughout the second part, thinking that that character was more like a curse to the family. And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting because I didn't think of that. And I thought, okay, so it's like having a diamond, a very raw diamond, very close to a source of light, and you start moving this diamond, and you see all different reflections of interpretations. But it's incredible because this film was not made, from my part, with the intent of having an instant commercial success. This is, Brad, a visionary film made for the future. This will be my only feature film. Possibly, if I will do another one, it will be in 2 years' time, which will be an extreme lesbo horror film called The Benefactress. But that will be it in terms of feature films. In terms of short films, I have one coming pretty soon, Corporate Torment, and maybe a few more in the years to come. But as feature films, Dariuss, and possibly, like I said, possibly in the future, The Benefactress, these are the only two ones. And the reason why is because I want to leave my mark fundamentally with very few words, and then just, disappear into obscurity and leave the time, do the rest with my work. It might be 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 20 years from now. Dariuss, it's a film for tomorrow's audience. It was never meant to be for today's audience because it's way, way beyond conventional mandaries of today's cinema. But like many things in happened before, many films tend to be more appreciated as time goes on. And I believe Dariuss has the potential for that, because it's a film that is a very polarizing film. It divides. It doesn't leave anybody indifferent. There will be people who are going to love it, and people are going to say, what the hell is this? What is
Right.
this?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And the reason is because the way it's made. Plus, don't forget the film, and that's, again, it was something that I wanted. From time to time, characters in this film, they actually look at you, that you are watching the film.
Yeah.
And that happens quite regularly throughout the film. And it's not just one character. From time to time, if you pay attention, you will see that whatever character is in that scene is actually turning around and looking at you to make sure you're still there watching what's going on. And again, that gives you a very intense sense of claustrophobia, uncomfort, and ultimately realism, because you know, is she watching me? Is he watching me? You know, what is this? You know, it's almost like 3D to some degree. You know, it's a very sick film, and it's arty, but without being intellectual. It's experimental, but without being, you know, too way out there. You know, and at the same time, he incorporates element of pornography, hardcore horror, and painting like images mixed with photography, and sounds replacing dialogues. You know, every noise from women fingering themselves, you can hear the noise of, you know, the finger going in, out, to stabbings, eating, the milk scene. That's quite powerful. When we see, the milk in theory should be something that celebrates life, because milk is about life, feeding life, whether it is human beings or animals. In this film,
Yeah.
anything that has to do with milk is negative. So it puts upside down the very things that, you know, in our lives we regard as positive. Children laughing, children smiling, children, you know, giggling, baby giggling voices and things like that. It will make everybody's heart melt. In this film is actually the opposite. It gives you the creep, because the film points out at making you hate the things that you should love, and at the same time, um, you can't walk away in front of the horror that you're actually witnessing. So it's kind of ironic, because you wonder, maybe I am really what the film is trying to tell me. Maybe because I can't look away, it means I am not far off potentially from these characters to some degree.
Yeah. So yeah, that's really interesting. Describing it with the milk and everything, that made an impact on me. I wasn't, but when you described it like that, that makes a whole, I see it in a whole other different level. Oh, that's crazy. So do you think that so did you exercise all your demons when you made this movie, or did you create some more?
Good question. Definitely I empty the whole bucket, if I can use that word. But the point is, turning the whole thing into a film and crafting those demons, looking face to face to those demons, and making something out of it, out of every one of them. It's been tough for me, really tough. But like I say, the real challenge was later on, when we started working from, you know, from distance, because the guy doing the helping me during the editing, you know, was in Italy, which is, like I said earlier, is one of the actors in the film. The big guy, you know, Archibald Kane, that's his alias. And but yeah, he himself, which has, you know, over 10 years experience in the film industry, He said, I never seen anything like that. Even from a technical standpoint, there are multiple frames per second. From a technical standpoint, this film is probably far more difficult than the vast majority of mainstream films. There's no CGI, first of all. There's no computer graphic image. It's all analogical. It's all handmade. And the camera is moving in a certain way. The photography is being altered 100 times in some shots, and then modified through editing programs. It's a very, very, very complex film from a technical standpoint. And there, in some parts, there are like up to 20, 30, 40, 50 different sounds per each scene, and some backwards. The voice that we hear twice, who is Dariuss, but backwards, whispered. Again, subliminal messages, both sound and visuals, the eyes of a character, which we can barely see throughout the film, mixed with the eyes of the female character in the film. And you wonder, hang on a minute, and the hair sculpts. All, you know, the film is very female, if I can use that terminology. There's female presence throughout the film. We have the little girl, we have the mother, which happens to be also the wife of this man. We have her mother, you know, the old lady, the grandmother, and we have these other character, you know, also, without giving too much away, but the film is very female oriented. It deals with that a lot, and you know, it's not a masculine film, and yet it has the power and depravity of masculine perversion. So it's a very, you know, unusual piece of filmmaking, and it's not for everybody. I always say, don't waste your time watching this thing. If you're looking for something that makes sense to you, and at the end everything, you know, it's perfectly answered, it's decodified, then it's not for you. Dariuss is not about that. It's a journey. It's an experience for those who want to enter the dark room of orgy, and they are fundamentally completely open, whether it's going to be one thing or the other getting to them. They have to be totally ready for it. Once you take the pill, the magic pill, and you go in that room, that's what Dariuss is. And are you ready? Some, I don't think they are, and some they are. It's a film, like I say, it's a visionary film made for the future, for tomorrow's audience.
Yeah, I think that like in some countries are going to be a lot more receptive to it right away, because it does kind of remind me of, so the French New Wave movies, when the French New Wave of horror, like movies like Inside, Martyrs, and things like that. That one is, it's kind of like that, but it actually goes even further in spots. So I think that they would be like, the French would be French, Germans, Italians. They're going to be much more receptive right away. But with the States, it's going to take the States a lot longer to catch on to a style more. So yeah, definitely for tomorrow for the States, for sure. But although there's be some people in the States that will catch on to it, find it interesting, I think it's one of those things that will just take a while to kind of get its footing in the States, because those other, as far as like experimental stuff, those other countries like France and the Italians and Japanese, you know, Europe, they've all been embraced that much quicker than America has.
It's funny because most of the people actually like my work happens to be, ironically, from United States.
Probably because it's something so different, you know, as well too.
Because it's such a massive country. It's a huge country. So obviously when you have such a huge country, you're going to find your space no matter what. Italy, on the contrary to what some people might think, Italy is a very backwards country. It's not anymore the country it was back in the 70s with giallo films and so on. Today, Italian independent cinema, with some exceptions, for the most part, are just copycats of past glories, but in kind of more modern version. That's why it is pretty shit. Excuse my French. You know, I think the Japanese, the French, some parts of America definitely are way more ready for a film like Dariuss, because it doesn't look back. It doesn't try to imitate anything past. Is just showing itself at the doorstep and say, "Here I am. It's me. It's Dariuss. You know, try me out." You know, and it's something different, and it can't have clones. This
Yeah,
is
yeah.
pretty much
Hmm.
an hybrid film. You can't make a sequel,
Right,
Darius 2.
right. Yeah,
you
yeah.
you know,
Make the PG-13 sequel next.
fact is, I mean, take for instance the next work that I'm working on. Again, this will be
Hmm.
a short film for YouTube, but there will be two versions: the YouTube version, which will be cut,
Hmm.
and the version that will go on the platform where Dariuss will go also, which will be operative from October, and it's called Horror Faces. So if anyone wants to watch Dariuss, I take this chance to say it, before it gets a DVD release. They can watch it on this new digital platform operative from October called Horror Faces, which is, it can be seen from anywhere in the world. Dariuss will be there, and also possibly my future possible near, coming now, short film Corporate Torment, which is only 15 minutes long, but there I can put the uncut version.
Hmm.
And again, that deals with corporate greed, but to some degree is even more disturbing because penetration, sodomy, we perceive these things made by adults, out of, just sickness. In Corporate Torment, you will have to see, but um, actions like that are performed by individuals in life that you will never expect on the expense of the big and powerful ones, which up to that point they seem to be almost invincible. I give you an example. It's like seeing a bodybuilder, a massive guy, being forcefully sodomized by a little guy, a lot younger than him, which, if you look at him, he will not be able to even lift a pack of cigarettes, and yet is doing what he's doing with such ferocity and such, aggression, that you wonder how the hell in the world this is happening. I mean, it's not possible, and yet, the bodybuilder, giving just the example, he can't move, so it gives you a sense of impotence. I think is the right word, a complete sense of claustrophobia, and you feel impotent, and that's what that specific short film is pointing at. That sense of impotence, which is terrifying. If once you see what's going on in there, and you see who's doing what, you feel like, oh my god, oh my god, you know. And Dariuss touches those buttons repeatedly, because whoever is doing what really is a child. If you look closely, he's a child. It's not someone, it's not a person that is calculating, a super killer, very well organized. No, we're talking about a person, um, with a lot of ambiguity there, and fundamentally a grown-up child.
Childlike mentality. Yeah, yeah, with a lot of, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, a lot of interesting things take away from it, a lot of different kind of interpretations. Now, when you're talking about like kind of going extreme in these movies, is there something that goes into your mind that says this is a line and maybe I shouldn't cross it? Or do you take like that thought and you kind of put it aside and said, I'm making a movie here, get out of my way? Um, what's your reaction to having the, or do those thoughts pop into your mind when you're making a movie?
I decided from the moment I started being a filmmaker, Brad, if I had to go down that road and use cinema as a tool to tell stories, there was no coming back. I I didn't go down that road to say, okay, I'm going to open all those doors, accept that one, or not that one. Maybe those, yes, but that one, no, no. But again, it's not because of sensationalism. I could not care less about that. I leave that to others. It's because I think certain stories really need to be told bluntly, openly. And it's like when you are a child and you are spying somewhere, you're having a major crush on someone who is twice your age, for example. You start fantasizing, and or other examples, then you say, okay, how can I incorporate all of these elements with my anger? How can I incorporate all of that with my sadness, with my fears? How can I do that and create a story that actually works? And if you start putting the pieces together, it doesn't take much to have a story that is about perversion and madness and ugliness, and yet you're able to craft it in a way that, in its own way, has some kind of beauty. Because at the end of the day, um, I don't find darkness as ugly. I find other things as ugly. Silliness in films, for example, films that try to be cool and they're not. I find them scary, not because they're scary, but because I've been wasting 2 hours of my time watching that garbage. That's scary to me. But to make a film that really is daring and wants to show certain things in a certain way and quite successfully, yeah, okay, it deals with this, it deals with that. But at the end of the day, I was able to make a film the way I wanted, and perfectly knowing that this is a polarizing film. It's not a film for everybody. I know. I didn't make the film. I didn't make the film Dariuss, Brad, for the masses. I made the film Dariuss for the many few. In a way, it's a very racist film. Racist not in terms of racial issues, but racist because it does discriminate against the mediocre. It's a film that clearly says to those ones who get hard and wet by watching rubbish, it's a film that says to those people, don't watch me. You never get me. Don't waste your time. Stick to your usual stuff. So
Yeah.
it's racist in that way. And at the same time, it attracts people who are more into deeper stuff. Deeper doesn't mean better, but they want to go beyond and below the surface of things. It's not a film for the masses. You can't go to the cinema and watch Fast and Furious 4, for example, and go crazy for Dariuss. You can watch both, but you are going to be crazy for just one of them. You can't be crazy for both of them because one hates the other. This perhaps is for more those people who are into Eraserhead, I guess. I don't know, or some Cronenberg stuff, some, to a certain degree anyway. But for those who like Scream 4, or for those who like Halloween, great stuff. I love all of that stuff. But clearly, this is not the answer for them. The film deals with madness, and it makes people feel very uncomfortable. And those ones who run away and they are not afraid of feeling uncomfortable, they are the ones in which the film was aimed at. The ones that don't run away, the ones that don't get scared of feeling in a certain way, because the film can make you feel even sexually aroused at some point, and there's nothing to be scared of. I had people actually felt sexually aroused when they were watching parts of the film which were pretty horrific, and they were like, Chris, oh my God, what's happening to me? And I thought this is normal because the complexity of human beings, it's not something that we can just work out. 2 + 2 = 4. I think this film explores different levels of humanity.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Well, yeah. So many interesting things that you said. You're a very fascinating filmmaker, fascinating person. I don't think anybody could ever your movies may be many things, but no one can ever like accuse you of selling out to Hollywood or a movie being made by committee. So,
No, no, I
you
don't think
definitely, yeah.
I don't think they're gonna call me for the Academy Award, Oscar. I don't think so.
But the vision that you have in your mind, you execute it in the way that you want to, and that's the most important thing I think for independent filmmaker or as an artist, is being able to get that vision on the screen or whatever their format is. And I think there's like a really satisfying part of that, of being able to do something that you want to do. And that's what's so great with independent movies now, is that there's more and more opportunity for that, more and more platforms for your work to get seen, and more room for experimentalism. So yeah, so I think that your movies are really fascinating. Like I encourage anybody take a look that has like, now it's like you said, not going to be for everybody, but if you're into experimental stuff, if you're willing to kind of like have an open mind and take a look at some of these things, and if you are into kind of stuff where they go a little bit further, like David Cronenberg goes to weird spaces. So yeah, it'll definitely test your limits in a lot of ways. But on the other hand, that's what art is supposed to do. Art is supposed to kind of confuse you. Art is supposed to make you think, and that's a large part of it as well too. Art, because art can exist on many different forms, as whereas like popcorn, like
Yeah,
here sometimes people are in different moods to watch different kinds of things. So
yeah,
but yeah, I don't think that, but I think that your stuff is unique in a way where I haven't seen a lot of other things. That's what's also like really important to me too about independent movies, is to, as an independent filmmaker, that you do something that nobody else is doing. I think that's what's so kind of awesome and so exciting about movies nowadays, and the opportunities that people have for movies nowadays. So Horror Faces, where you said it's going to be in October, right? Darius, going to be
yeah.
October.
Horror Faces, it's an on-demand digital platform which is based in Italy, but it will be international, like Netflix, basically. And it will be obviously for horror films and short films from all over the world. Independent filmmakers can submit their films there, and Dariuss will be there. Probably even my next work, like I said, short film Corporate Torment, and but Dariuss will also be in the future, don't know when, on DVD. So the aim is to have the film also on DVD release, which is the final aim for that film. And then once it's out, my baby, as I call it, is free in the world to go and grow over the years. But yeah, it's called Horror Faces. So follow that up because it's been just created recently, and it will be fully operative from October, streaming. So it's pretty cool.
Okay, awesome. Well, fantastic. And then your other movies are still up on YouTube from what I've seen so far, so everybody can check out your short movies there as well. Yeah, a lot
Yeah,
of cool
yeah,
stuff
yeah.
to check out there. A lot of like really cool, interesting experimental stuff. And when you watch those and you see this one, you see where they kind of build up to. Although I think in this one, actually, your editing techniques are even like more improved in this one. I noticed there was a really cool, yeah, I can definitely tell when just watching this and seeing how many edits were in the movie, and the amount of time and effort that you put into the contrast and the different kind of lighting, the different looks on each different scene on there, and all these different kind of unusual editing styles that you're incorporated into it. I could tell that must have been just quite an accomplishment, to say the least. So
It is. I mean, on my YouTube channel, obviously there are my early works, the 3 short films and the medium length film, plus the trailer of Dariuss. But the film itself, it's not on my YouTube channel. Like I say, it will be on Horror Faces, and in the future, hopefully on DVD release. And going back to the editing, yes, it has been a massive challenge. That was the main cause of my breakdowns, because the film, you can watch the film once and then you're going to watch the film again and you see something else, something different. And even when you close your eyes, the way I made the film works with delay effect, meaning you're watching a scene now and then after an hour or so, some of those scenes will stick to your mind. That's not an accident. That's because the way I mentally elaborated the film was done for that, in that way. And obviously I had to test the film on me first. And that was also a contributing factor as to the reason why the third mental breakdown I had especially was pretty bad, because I could not get these images out of my mind. There was no way for me to just shut them off. So you can imagine doing this hundreds of times every week for 8-9 months, testing everything on you, a bit like a scientist. You're testing, you're getting, your shots, you're shooting yourself basically with this liquid every time. You're testing your veins every time to see if these drugs actually work. And when it does work, you go like, okay, now how can I clean myself up and sell this to the public? So that's what happened.
Yeah. Interesting on so many different levels. Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, great to have you back here and talking to you again. And I wish you nothing but the best of success and happiness. And yeah, everybody check out Guerrilla Metropolitanas. Did I get it right? Metropolitan. Yes.
Yeah.
Check out Guerrilla Metropolitana's Dariuss and his other movies on YouTube. You will see something unlike you've never seen before. Okay.
Thank you so much, Brad.
Yes.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks again for being with us, and we'll see you next time on the Dead Harvey podcast.
Brad.
Yeah, well, great
Thanks so
talking to you,
much.
and I'm glad that the movie didn't kill you. I know that you're like suffering for your art, but I'm glad the movie didn't kill you and you're in one piece. That's what happens to a lot of people. Those movies really, man, they are so much more difficult than people think. I think people just think that when you make a movie, oh, this guy made a movie and it's easy, and people just don't have any idea of what people go through making movies.
No, even because this film was, like I said, I was the director, the actor, the editor, not from a technical standpoint in terms of executing job, but I was the one instructing Fabrizio or Archibald Kane what to do. So the music is from me, apart from one song. The special effects are from me. So I've done the job of 6, 7, 8 people. So, and I've got only one brain. Or whatever is left of it. So obviously when you're putting so much pressure, you're kind of happy and relieved that the film is finished.